Thank you, Chair. And yes, I'm in Leinster House. Minister, thank you. It's lovely to hear from you and engage with you as always. So I'm also very grateful for your office and how cooperative and supportive they are. I echo the sentiments, the questions of Deputy Costello with regard to the Dublin 12 group, and there are a number of individual cases in your office at the moment that pertain to their complaints and members of their group that would have received the letters from the Children's Disability Network team advising them that there's going to be a 40-month delay and other sorts of delays in the provision of services to them. So it's not just about assessment of needs, actually the delay in the delivery of services, and in those letters, the fact that they include within the letters the email and contact for complaints shows us the extent to which they expect that there's going to be a complaint. So I suppose that can be deeply frustrating, and we are all tagged on a regular basis and on almost daily basis because there is such a level of frustration that we actually really understand. I also work with another group that is headed up by a woman called Vanessa Hughes, and they have children who maybe are 7 years of age and have only had 4 weeks of OT, who are engaged in a very, very long process, that there are changes in staff, and each time there's a change in staff within the HSE or within the provision of services, they have to start again. There is lacking in that continuity of personal, even knowledge. There isn't even a handover of files. It's start again. It's a checklist of a long questionnaire. So I think that we need something in the intervention of that. Delighted with your initiative regarding autism. I know that Minister Josepha Madigan is completely 100% on board. So when you talk about silos, I'd be very confident that there isn't one with her, and because she, like yourself, is extremely active and passionate in this area and in bringing about resolution. I have a couple of questions. I suppose when we come to speech and language therapists, for instance, as a sample, there is a difficulty in private practitioners coming on board with the HSE to fill even maternity places, because they are prohibited from having private practice while they are on board for that duration. And we really need to do something about that, because if we could engage and harness the hours of private practitioners, then we would multiply we would shorten the list and multiply the provision. So I think that's a really important. I would have a practical question around Beach Park. A lot of the services and the people that we that I engage with would attend Beach Park, which is in Tala, and whether that is closing or is it moving to the primary care centre. I think that would be important. So sorry, I could go on, but I won't. I'll let you. Oh, and just one last thing. One of the recommendations in the report is the creation of this database of assessment of needs, and clearly that's well underway. But in a meeting recently, regarding who are the biggest offenders of data protection breaches, the same 5 groups are at the top of the list for the Data Commission, and one of those includes TUSLA, and others where there are repeat offenders in breaches in data protection. Now, we got the reassurance from TUSLA at this meeting, or at this committee, before Christmas, that things are being dealt with in the most recent, really quite horrendous breaches. But in that, we need to have some sort of culture of privacy protection, particularly if we have changes over in staff, and I think that's important. But anyway, sorry, over to you, Minister.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you, Chair, for allowing me back in again. All right, in relation to the complaints and the 40 months delay, and I think this is also to Deputy Costello, I might not have answered your question because I think you are steering to this same point as well. To be honest with you, I've met with the HSE a number of times about this. And where you have a reconfiguration of services and where you actually have an assessment going through with primary care and with network disability teams, it actually baffled me how they could write out the letters and put on it 4 years or 40 months. It flied in the face of where we were going with when we actually hadn't reconfigured, when we actually hadn't done our assessment, that we were writing out such letters. And my annoyance also that we had parents, to be quite honest with you, where they might not have had received an intervention in a long number of months, but we were still in the middle of a pandemic. And I was actively recruiting posts, like 100 posts is what I've got funding for this year. There was 100 posts recruited in last year that were part of contact tracing and swabbing. They're only coming back into position now. My recruitment is taking place, and we still have a reconfiguration taking place. So to write out a letter and telling parents it could be 40 months, 46 months, I've seen them all in the various different areas around Dublin. I'm in continuous engagement with the HSE on that, and I have been assured that those letters are not to continue till we have an understanding exactly as to what actually is the service need under the various areas within the various CHOs around of it. Okay, and we have put a time on the service statement as well. So like the HSE will be back to us very, very soon, so as I can actually answer that question where we have a time length as to what exactly, like I'm not going to accept that 40 months is good enough. It's not good enough.
No, it's not.
And it's not good enough either that you aged out when you were 6 years. So that's where the PDS is. So you don't fall off the system and go back in again at the end of the queue. That stopped. That's why PDS is happening. But at the same time, we need to find out a timeline on it, an acceptable timeline. To be honest with you, if your child is diagnosed that they need a speech and language, tell them they won't get it for 4 years. That's not good enough. We can't stand over that as Oireachtas members or as programme for government or the state.
Excellent.
Next point that you spoke about therapists. You are right, and I didn't have the answer there for Deputy Kearns. And I don't have the answer for you, but what is the turnover like? You know what I'm trying to say? What we haven't done in the past is built in enough capacity to support the turnover. And in actual fact, the reason we have turnover is because it is very stressful unless you have enough people on the teams to make it work. So that's where 100 last year, 100 again this year. And it will continue to be my ambition within the budgetary negotiations to ensure that our PDS is fully populated out. But we also have to remember as well, primary care have a recruitment process taking place as well. Not all access to speech and language, OT or physio, all falls within disability. There is an access provision there as well within primary care. So my question there is to ensure they're recruiting what they have been budgeted for, and that they are reconfiguring their teams the way I'm reconfiguring mine, because I'm reconfiguring mine on a basis that primary care are working nearly in tandem at this moment in time. So I talk about coming in the front door of primary care, I talk about that access to provision, I talk about the escalator. That only works if everybody is doing the same recruitment, working in the same pods together. So that answers that. So that also answers in relation to speech and language therapists, private practitioners. Yes, the private practices, we did go out right across the country to assist me in clearing my assessment of needs. The Section 38s, the Section 39s, the private providers played a huge role in that. And I do see that there will be a role to play as well if we want to clear a backlog. But at the same time, I have a public purse that allows me to recruit. I want to recruit into those posts. Primary care have a public purse. We need to recruit into those. That's what we need to do, and to be filling those posts. So I do know that I have 50 posts that will be filled before June, and I'll be going out again in June. I have the portal as such set up for the recruitment process. All I just need is more money to keep recruiting, and I'll keep doing that job. But there's a budgetary constraint, needless to say, on that. And in relation to Beach Park, Tala and the primary care centre, this was raised with me. And I do know that there's work ongoing, because perhaps we don't have a primary care centre there at this moment in time. And I don't have enough information to answer it, but I do know the whole plan is disability is to be integrated as part and parcel of it. So that's a primary care answer, but we will get you the answer on it, Senator Kearney.